Hi.
Well, I wish it was.
Welcome to the December in-service. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm your guest speaker today because I need to leave at 2:45 to be at the 3 o'clock meeting. So Anita will do the last part of the meeting. She'll be back. And Anita asked me to come in and talk with you folks about suicide with elderly and disabled folks. My name's Darlene Avery, and I am an IHSS caregiver in home support. My sister is disabled, and so that's how I'm involved with the Independence Center otherwise. But I am also a licensed clinical social worker and an ordained clinical chaplain, and I've been working in disabilities and healthcare for at least 15 years. So, and I have had my own professional experiences around suicidality, suicide. So I'm happy to be here to hopefully give you guys some helpful information and ideas about what to do if you're worrying that one of your clients may be suicidal. So just to start with, I'm going to start with a trivia game, and I should have brought like a little bag of Hershey's Kisses or something to like toss out prizes. But who do you think is the highest risk, not highest risk, what's the demographic group in the United States with the most suicides? Teens? That's what most people say, teens. Elderly is true, and can you get more specific?
They're men.
White elderly men. The highest group of suicidal folks. But put together, men and women, elders are by far people who commit the most suicides in the country. We think it's teens, don't we? Because teens are very emotionally demonstrative. They really are. I mean, and that's, by the way, that's neurological. It's literally what's going on in their brain formation, but that's a different in-service. But no, it is staggering, actually. We don't realize how many of our elders are committing suicide. And people who are experts with elders actually suspect the true number of suicides is even higher. But what can happen a lot of times when elders die in circumstances, sadly, is because they're old. People don't really investigate very thoroughly. So medication errors versus overdose or things like that they suspect happen. Now, and even, by the way, just for trivia's sake, what do you suppose is the second highest demographic group in the United States for suicide?
Elderly women?
It's actually not.
Men, teenage girls, middle-aged.
Middle-aged men? Teenage girls? Native American teen males. I don't know if any of you have ever lived or worked on any of the reservations, but those are some sad places to be.
Is there any reason particularly why?
I mean, it really is a cultural crisis. I don't know if you know, last I heard, the life expectancy on Pine Ridge, in general, reservation in the Dakotas, 47.
Wow.
So is the reason, I mean, are we talking most of these teenage suicides of the Indians, males, are reservation Indians, not necessarily?
It's all the way across, but there are problems. But I'm not going to get distracted by that because we're talking about disabled and elderly. But yeah, however, like I said, both men and women elders are at elevated risk for suicide. Interestingly, what happens with women is if you look at women across a whole lifespan, our highest risk in suicidality is midlife. And then the curve starts to drop back off. With men, it just keeps climbing with age. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Just keep. Why do you think that is?
Well, because women go through that whole menopausal thing, which I think makes them higher risk.
Mhm.
But as men age, they lose their mothers, their sisters, their wives. There's no one to take care of them. And they have this pride thing that says, I'm not going to ask my kids to take care of me, so they don't want to be the burden. Where a woman
Yeah,
says,
the
"I
whole
care for
burden
y'all."
thing,
It's
the
burden-
loss
it's
of
the burden
the-
thing. They don't want to
Yeah.
burden.
Yeah, it's
It's not manly.
an interesting thing. Yeah. Now, it's even a little more concerning in the disabilities community, the whole suicide, death thing, because sadly, and any of us who have worked in it probably have firsthand experience, in the disabilities world, there really is still a lot of ignorance and a lot of prejudice, not just in the wider community, but frankly in the healthcare profession. And we suspect that depression and suicidality in folks with disabilities is even more often missed or ignored. Why? Excuse me for saying this, but I've literally heard this when I've been in an ER with a disabled person I was taking care of. Well, they have no quality of life anyway. Yeah. So there's real concern that depression and suicidality are not caught with some people, and like with the elder people who dies when they die, not necessarily looking too deep into what happened. So that's why we have places like the Independent Center. That's why we exist, is to be. So our folks are at a higher risk by the fact that they're Independent Center clients than the general population.
Well, and with all the medication they take it too, you know. It's,
Yep.
it's a lot of side effects. People don't realize that.
That's right.
You know, it's
Yep.
medication.
So what we're going to talk about now is what are risks. Oh, can you grab me one of the quizzes? It's sort of my outline. Thank you. What?
Sure, I'll get you one.
Oh, no, sorry. Anita's grabbing it for me. What kind of factors we're going to talk about now make you more likely to be suicidal or succeed? And what kind of factors do what we call buffer you, protect you, make it less likely that you're actually, whoops, going to get to that point. My bad. Can you think about it? What kinds of things do you think?
Lack of family or caregiving around you.
Absolutely. Social isolation. When you don't have other people around you. You bet. You don't have other people providing support, which makes you more alone, scared, unable. Also, it's more eyes on if you are starting to get really depressed. If you've got a lot of people around you, there's a better chance somebody else is going to notice. You bet. Social isolation is a huge factor. What else do you think?
See a lot of suicide during the holidays. People don't have family around.
Yeah, and again, that's that social isolation piece. Everybody else is jolly, right? But you. What other factors do you
I
think?
would think financial,
Yeah, I think that's number
financial.
one.
The strain really does contribute.
Yeah.
It does. It's not one of the top factors, but it's one that gets associated with other factors
on.
going on. Yeah, exactly. It could be the tipper, the tip point. Other major factors, can you think?
Some kind of long-term illness.
Yes. Serious medical illness, particularly if there's a lot of pain, suffering, symptoms that just absolutely, there's a big association with that. So often, people who end up, they just can't take the suffering anymore.
Sense of hopelessness.
Yeah, that comes, and if any of you have ever been in any kind of extended serious pain, breathlessness, nausea, those kinds of symptoms, they will take you down. And your body literally can only take so much of that suffering. You're right, so absolutely. Healthcare and suffering. And we're going to talk about that actually in markers for try to help someone suicidal. We're going to get back to that. What else? Here are other major factors. Substance abuse. Very. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, why do you think substance abuse might put you at higher risk?
You're not lying.
Right, seriously, people who are dealing with substance abuse, certainly when you're under the influence, you don't think real straight, you get impulsive, you can do some crazy, stupid things in the moment. And sometimes crazy, stupid things are really lethal in a moment. Can't take it back. People who are struggling with substance abuse, and this is a chicken and egg question, and it's hard to kind of know which came first, but they aren't people in general who have good coping skills anyway, which is why the substance abuse has become a problem they don't have a handle on. So if you don't cope well on a good day, and you don't have a lot of good life skills for dealing with hard times, what do you suppose happens when the despair starts to hit? You don't realize the options that are there. You have a hard time seeing options and reaching for them. And ultimately, what's suicide? I have no options, right?
They're supposed to give them options then?
Oh, what we're going to talk about. Okay. Other risk factors that you can think of? You guys are getting good. You're getting going.
Whether they're not receiving the services they truly need.
Yeah, sure.
You know, like with the Connecticut shooting, how he was autistic, but I have an older autistic boy, and Medicaid won't cover any psychic treatment, or it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, that's a can of worms, isn't
neuropsych
it?
evaluation to see if they're actually sane. Medicaid don't pay for that.
Yeah, isn't that?
And so, that's why they've slipped through the cracks, I'm thinking, and yeah, that was horrible. And I know it's all over the news because it's kind of their anniversary.
Yeah.
You know?
And
I'm
that's
terrified that my son might, because his anger, I worry. Could that be my son in a few years? Wake up one day, I'm gonna kill somebody? I mean, it's horrible. But that's why
hard.
they're not receiving the services they need.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, you're right. So if we think about what makes people more disposed to suicide, what do you suppose can pull them back from the brink or buffer them from getting that far gone? What protects people from suicide?
Everyone's getting talked to.
Yeah, it's kind of the flip side of what makes you more for suicide.
Having
If you
friends
have
and
people
family
around
and
you and a
support.
good social support network, you're much less likely. That's right. Because someone will catch the despair before it gets to that point. Yep. What else? Someone else talked about getting the right medical treatment. That helps with that, if you're seriously ill, it makes you more suicidal. If you're getting the right healthcare treatment, they're likely to catch substance abuse. Yeah, getting the right treatment is huge. Yep. Anything else you can think of? Honestly, sometimes personal beliefs. Some people have religious beliefs, spiritual and ethics that are so strong in them that they think, no, that can't be an option for me because it's the wrong thing to do. Sometimes that will buffer you. Yeah.
I just figured out the reason why women must be middle-aged, because their kids are grown, and prior to that, they can't do it because they have to be there for the kids.
That may be.
You know,
That
you
may
can't check out when you're a 5-year-old. When you're 25, it's a little easier to say, check
That
out
may
now.
be. Yeah.
Your obligations.
So we talked about how in seniors, a lot of times depression and that don't get caught, or if somebody dies by suicide, it's sort of written off as something else, accidental death and things like that. Let's talk for a minute about elders. When it comes to both disabilities and elders, everything is a little different in healthcare. Medications are different, right? Treatments are different. The way we respond is different. And the truth is there aren't a lot of healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, or whatever, who even have to study this stuff in med school. It's all considered elective coursework. It's outside the norm, whatever that is. So it's not in the core. So there's still a lot of ignorance, even with professional providers, about how to recognize signs and symptoms, how to treat people. Look at elders, for instance. Older people's bodies, by the way, children's bodies too, pediatric medicine is different, literally metabolize medicines differently, respond to treatments differently. Symptoms when you get sick are different. How many of you have been around an elder who doesn't have any dementia, who's totally not, and all of a sudden they go stark raving mad in hours? Yeah, homicidal, suicidal, totally delirious, crazy, blah, blah, blah. What was it? Urinary tract infection. Infections affect elder people different than your average 20-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old. They do. Yeah, what else? Can make them just go.
Well, there's so many people out there now with bipolar.
And if they miss their meds.
But that would be a mental health condition. There would be an explanation for that.
Right.
Blood sugar. Oh yeah. Nutrition? Absolutely. You bet. What happens if you get really dehydrated? It can get really weird. You bet. So, yep, blood sugar, dehydration, what else?
Being extremely tired. And that affects
Fatigue.
fatigue. I was just
Stress.
visiting my mother, and she went from, she just became a total witch because it was past her bedtime.
Mm.
30 minutes. And
There you go.
unreasonable.
Fatigue?
Went to sleep.
Yeah?
And she was fine. And I was just like,
I would have to say I've probably lost it a couple times, and it was probably due to.
Fatigue. That's right. That's right.
But
Yeah.
it seemed to hit her so fast.
Yeah, just boom.
Yeah.
Medications. Very, very common medication for anxiety to give people is Ativan. You give Ativan to a senior, oh, that can get really interesting. And it's just because their body chemistry is different. They metabolize things differently. Here's what's even more interesting. A lot of these conditions, nutritional conditions, depression, pain, all of this, will show up with the senior won't be able to verbalize it. They may not realize it, but that's what's going on. So what diagnosis do you think they get? Dementia! Ding, 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 ding. You, as a senior, you have a higher chance of getting diagnosed with dementia because your doctor is 10 or more years younger than you are, than the fact that doctors run any testing whatsoever. True story. Yep. You're a little off, you're a little funky, you've got a younger doctor, and then they go, oh, must be dementia.
But doesn't families also play into that?
Absolutely.
You know, the friend who's doing-
Sure. Hopefully what you've got is you've got good family with you and they're sitting in the waiting room with you with the doctor and they're going, she's not demented. She was doing her checkbook yesterday. Run something. Yeah, yeah, right. This is very big in the state of Colorado now, and they demand that some screening be done before every single person entering a Medicaid licensed nursing home. There has to be some testing done because what they found is very often people are getting diagnosed with dementia when it's something else. And I love to tell my scary story. One of the scariest in-services I've ever been at was we were showed video footage of someone helping a person in a nursing home get up in the morning and get dressed. And in the first video, the person is, you can tell they're really slow and they're stiff and they're tired and they're not really talking to the worker and the worker's having to help them pull their arms and they're all going, oh yeah, Alzheimer's patient, yeah, sure enough. Next video, very same person, resident. Not only are they not tight and stiff, they're carrying on full lucid conversations with the CNA and she's changing her own bra. The difference? 2 Tylenol in the morning. That's it. 2 Tylenol in the morning.
Don't forget taking it.
No, that's what it is. Chronic low-grade pain will wear you down, shut you down. Absolutely. That's all it took. And this woman got her life back. 2 Tylenol every morning. I will never forget that in service. So we really need, when somebody is appearing to be pretty far gone, we really have got to pay attention. And what that's going to mean for you guys is you're going to be giving the heads up here at the center, and the nurses, if they need a social worker or a caseworker, are going to be going out to really take a closer look, because it's not that simple. It's not that simple with anybody. But there's a lot of ignorance. Now here's another risk factor I forgot that is really, really important. And I need you guys to stay with me here, because this is a loaded conversation. Ha ha ha. In the state of Colorado. I want you to know I am a gun owner. I own handguns, I own rifles, I own shotguns in my house. But if someone is suicidal, it is flat up CDC, undeniable proven, and they have access to a firearm, the chance that they will die goes through the roof. Through the roof. Straight up. This isn't a talk about anybody's right to own guns in the United States of America. And when I have had to deal with families, and some of them, they're like ranchers out east, they've got coyote guns, you know? It's a tool, I get it. Not arguing that, but if you have somebody who's severely depressed or suicidal, what I say is this is not a Second Amendment conversation. This is a short-term medical emergency. And we need to remove the gun until it passes. It's a temporary solution to a very serious risk problem. Because the truth is, if somebody, all it takes is one pull, that's it. And it's irreversible. It's just too high. So if somebody's suicidal, their family needs to get the guns out of the house.
So what if you're a caregiver? I'm a family caregiver, so that's different for me, but if you're not and you're taking care of a client that doesn't have anybody, you're the only one, and you know that they have that firearm, you can't take it.
No,
You know,
good
so-
for you. You will not be the one to remove the firearm from the home. Good. You're going to call right here. And you're going to talk, as we will say, you're going to talk to a live person, not leave a voicemail. And then they will know whether it's going to be getting a caseworker, calling Adult Protective, however they need to pursue it. But it would be good to know if we've got someone out there and we think that's a risk. So, what do you do when you're out and you're working in a home and somebody looks at you and says, you know what? I think I'm done. I just want to be dead. I want this over. What do we do?
Call for help.
You call for help. Yeah. What's the very first thing you might want to do? Talk to him. And what are you going to say? What's the next best kind of thing to say when somebody says something like that? What's going on? Yes! Thank you. Right. So suicide's a taboo in our country. In this culture, we it's one of these topics that like we're scared to death of, and we don't want to talk about it. It makes very nervous and all of that. Very often, by the way, here's another big risk factor for the completion of suicide. The suicidal person said something to somebody, and they ignored it, or they backed off it, or they just tried to cheer them up and they covered it over. They did not stop, and it's totally counterintuitive. Lean into that and go, what's going on? Yeah, or, oh, that's important. Tell me more about that. Talk to me.
Do that though, and then they cheer up and things seem better, and you don't, want to make their life hell.
Well, here's what you'll find. Thank you for saying that, because here's what you'll find. Because of that taboo in our culture, let me reassure you of one thing. This is something that it's a huge myth around suicide. The idea of, well, I don't want to go there because I might put the idea in their head and then they'll do it. You cannot put the suggestion into someone's head to kill themselves and have them do it. You can't do that. I don't even know, I didn't say this morning, they've done hypnosis tests with that, about killing someone or killing yourself. If you were hypnotized and you weren't already going there, you will wake up. You will snap out of it before you'll do it. It's not in you. It's not in you. And so you can't put it there by bringing it up. As a matter of fact, You didn't bring it up, they did. Right? That's the only reason now we're heading down this path. They said something. The best thing you can do, because people have completed suicide or people who survived attempts have said, I went ahead and did it because I tried to talk about it with a few people and now went, "Ugh." So lean in. And what you just want to do now is be a detective. There's a few pieces of information you want to get, and then you're going to call it in to the Independence Center. Because we aren't therapists, we aren't going to fix them, and we aren't police, and we aren't doctors. But by just getting a couple pieces of information, you will greatly equip the professionals who need to respond. So, somebody says, how do you get done? And you go, what's going on? And then here's what's important. Shut up and listen. We are so nervous around the concept of suicide, we will tend to get talky, and we will tend to try to make them feel better. But what happens when you jump into, oh no, honey, I don't want to hear you say something like that. You have so much to live for, and let me cheer. What's wrong with that?
They don't want to burden you, they feel bad.
Exactly. Oh, nope, they can't go there. I'm not going to put that on that. Yet you just shut them down, didn't you? You totally shut them down with the best of intentions. And what you've also communicated is, I can't handle this conversation because I'm trying to make it stop. So, oops, with the best of intention, you just cut it off at the knees. So, tell me what's going on, and then really listen. And here's what you may find. Any of us who've been seriously ill, disabled, even caregivers, there are times where you say, oh my God, I just want to be dead. Right? You're exhausted. You're having a hard time. It's just a bad day. And if you don't jump to conclusions, because the other way is, oh my God, I'm going to go call 911. Ah! And really, they're just exhausted. They're just tired. And if you listen, sometimes that is the best therapy you can do. They just need to get it out. And as they talk, you'll find out there isn't anything. They're just going to tell you what's wrong, and then they're going to say, and they're going to look at you and go, oh my God, thank you for listening.
If they come up with a plan and start telling you.
Yeah, right. She can do my presentation. Yeah. So what you ask is, here's the other thing. If you get a serious overt signal, the opening line is, so you've been working with the client for a long time, you're a CNA, they really test you, and then one day you're doing Medicist and they say, can I tell you a secret? By the way, you should always be concerned when anyone's going to says to you, can I tell you a secret? The answer to that, I would offer, should be, I really want to hear what you have to say, but that depends on what you tell me. Right? Never promise you can keep a secret before you know what's coming. Because you may have to report something. And then you've broken their secret, right? And now you've further sabotaged trust than they may even experiment. So never promise to keep a secret till you know what it is. And they say to you, you know, I've been stockpiling my meds and I think I have enough to do it. Oh, that's a true story. Yeah, that's a true story. A CNA I was working with, yeah, in home health, absolutely. Okay, this is a signal. So then what's your next question? You're going to want to go, ah! And run, but you lean in further and you go, wow, so you're serious about trying to kill yourself? And they go, oh yeah. And you go, where do you have the meds hidden? I'm serious. Or somebody says, you know, I'm just really done and I've got a 45. Okay, where are you keeping that gun right now? Is it loaded? Just get a little bit of information. Because when you call, Anita's going to want to know this. Peggy's going to want to know this. If we decide it's a 911 call, dispatch will really want to know this. As a matter of fact, if you end up doing a 911 call, which you're going to call here first, unless, by the way, if they're holding the gun then what do you do? No, what do you do
Get out.
first?
Get out.
You leave! You leave, then you call 911. That order. And by leave, 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 leave. There was a home health agency in Colorado Springs killed about 10 years ago. She left the house, went out, was in her car calling 911. They came out the front door and shot her. So leave, 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 call 911. But short of that, get information.
Yeah,
With the pills, though. And that, they can't make you take pills, so. if
They can't make you take up. No, so but what you can do is call in and say, you know, they tell me they've been cheeking and stockpiling their morphine for a while. That's helpful to know. And it's going to be really helpful to know if, you know, depending on what happens and when they get out there, and if somebody's delirious a little bit, and if they go, okay, there's a good chance they just dumped a bunch of morphine, that's going to help to know what you're dealing with. Although, if they're really serious and imminent, Independent Center's going to come up with a better plan than leaving them alone to drop the morphine. but yeah. Now, here's a third question that is not in a lot of official suicide assessments, but a lot of us who've worked around people at high risk find is really, really helpful. When I used to get called out in hospice and home health to do suicide assessments, because like a CNA calls me up and go, they just told me they've been stockpiling their meds and they have enough to do it. Here's what I found every single time. There was a symptom that was out of control, that they couldn't bear any longer, and we didn't even know about it. Pain that we didn't know about. Not one guy I went out, and it's because they don't know we can help. Or, so I went out to see a guy who kept insisting his pain was totally under control, but he was going to kill himself. And I'm sitting there talking to him, and he's white, he's pasty, he's sweaty, he looks god-awful, he's so weak he can't even get up off the couch. And he's sitting here denying there's any pain, and I'm trying to find out what's unbearable. And all of a sudden, with all the little strength he has, he like rolls over and he starts this god-awful, dry-heaving, retching, body-racking. Oh man, I looked at him and I go, how long has that been going on? 4 days. And I was like, okay, is that why you want to kill yourself? Uh-huh. Okay, I can understand that. It was terrible. So why didn't we know? Why didn't his caregiver know? Why do you think he didn't say anything? Part of it was that he said, well, you treat pain. I didn't know you can take care of my nausea. Why else do people not tell? Here's one I've heard a few times. My wife, she takes care of me all the time. She does so much for me, and she's so worried about me. And if I just gave her one more thing, she'd feel terrible about it. It's out of control, and I just want her to be able to sleep at night.
You don't want to get burdened.
Exactly. So they suck it up, suck it up, suck it up, suck until it breaks them, literally. Because everybody's got their break point. So, here's my third question. What's become unbearable for you? And sometimes they'll just start spilling their story and it'll become evident but I like to ask a real concrete question. Is there a symptom? Is there something that's happening to you that's just become too much? And it may come out. That would be very handy information to be able to give to the Independent Center when you call in. What is it? So you may get this thing of, you know, there's a lot of vets in this town. And what have soldiers been taught?
Suck it up.
Suck it up, suck it up, suck it up. These vets, man, what they will suck up until they break. Yep, you bet. Or what you may get when you ask is the person may say, you know, I can't take the pain. I can't take the pain. Where's the pain? My son committed suicide 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that kind of pain. You know, here they are, they're on their way out, and their kid just killed themselves. Yeah. But the Independent Center can get people to get out and help with that too. You bet. So, you want to lean in and find out, is it real? Because here's the thing, because of the taboo against suicide, if you get real concrete and they aren't serious, you'll also know that very quickly. Because they'll have the same response we all have, which is, ugh. So you ask someone, they say, you know, I just think I'm so tired of this world and I don't want to be here anymore. Oh.
Life's not fair.
If life's not fair, exactly. And you say, would you actually ever think about, like, taking your own life? And they, oh, no, I didn't mean that. I mean, they'll tell you that. If they're not suicidal, you'll know. They'll move quickly. And you go, oh, okay. Well, but just, you know, tell me a little about what's really burdening you so much right now. You know, while you're continuing with your care. If they're not suicidal, you'll know pretty quickly. Now, sometimes someone asked me after this morning session, what if they get kind of weird and evasive about it? That's something then that's worth calling in and going, you know, they kind of played a little bit of a game around it thing. And that could be, but that's worth putting little antennas up about. But usually, you being willing to open the conversation is the lifeline, and they'll grab it. If someone's almost at the end of their rope, and you toss out, and you make it plain, you can tell me. Usually, it's a new lifeline, and they'll grab it. And then you're going to call in here and get the cavalry to come take care of them. So, what kind of questions do you have? What are you wondering about? What have I covered? Not covered?
So number 7, is it A, B, and C, or is it A, B, C, and D?
I thought it was all in.
What do you think?
You know, what's
Number
going
7?
on, so I can listen, lean in.
The
when
first
you want,
best
tell me more.
first response. First response would be,
First.
yep. C, open the conversation. You're going to want to do that before you call anyone else to report, right? Because you want to get a little bit of information. Yep, tell me. Yep. Because then you're going to use that information when you call. Yep. So that's the first response. You will end up doing some of the others.
Right.
I got to tell you, comfort and reassurance are tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, you never want to go, ha, sucks to be you.
Right.
But very often, as caregivers, particularly you guys, we're all professional caregivers. I just want to offer you to think about something. When you're quick to reassure somebody, are you reassuring them or are you reassuring you? Me.
Both.
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 Who's it supposed to be about?
About them.
Yeah.
Right. Very often, when we're real quick to try to reassure somebody, it's our anxiety. We're actually reassuring ourselves. Yeah.
Question, Darlene. A little bit about depression. Now, people get the blues.
Yes.
How do you differentiate between, is it just they're having a rough day versus true depression?
That's a good question. And the truth is you need a professional to tease that out. That is tricky. And you want to get somebody who really knows how to do a depression assessment, because that can be hard. But here's the deal. First of all, the blues come and go. Depression does not. It becomes pervasive. It's day after day after day after day versus coming and going. People who have depression they lose the ability to kind of experience positive emotion, joy. It's called anhedonia. There's your science word for the day. Anhedonia is one of the marks of depression. Because here's the other thing. Is it depression? Is it grief? You know, people who are seriously ill and disabled may be grieving things that it's totally legitimate to grieve. It just happened to me today. I was in the Pace Center and somebody came in and said, oh, you need to go see so-and-so, they're really upset, they're really crying. And I said, why are they crying? Well, you know, they just got this news about their health and their best friend died. And I'm like, sounds like the right thing to be doing. Crying. Are you trying to rescue them? Because what you just told me is really sad. I'd be crying too. What happens if we cheer them up?
And get through their day, through their,
No, we just cut them off at the knees again.
oh, you did?
Sure,
It's okay.
totally invalidated their grief.
Oh.
What did we tell them? You better buck up. That's exactly what we told them.
Oh, you'll get over it. No.
Get over it, just stop crying,
Oh.
right? We did it politely. But what did we just say? Oh, you shouldn't be crying about this. Sure they should. See, that's our discomfort. We get uncomfortable when other people are crying. But what if they've got a darn good reason to be crying? Let them cry. Because what does crying do for us?
It's good sometimes.
Cleanses us, I guess.
It does. There's a reason we cry, because it helps you process the thing and get through it. That's why it's, yeah. But when everybody's constantly, oh, don't cry, oh, well, no, you got to go calm them down. I'm not about to calm them down. They're totally legitimate for what they're crying for. Did they say anything suicidal? No. Okay. Did they ask for someone to sit with them while they cry? Because sometimes you don't like to cry alone, right? Guess what? Some people won't cry unless they're alone. That would be me. You bust in on my crying, you've totally jacked up my process.
No, see, and I'm the opposite. If I want to cry, I want someone to listen to me.
Good. Then you're the sort of person, and that's why when I will ask people to say, you gotta go.
Just cry with me and then we'll be okay.
Perfect.
Alone,
But
I don't
but do you
cry.
want them to sit there and tell you to feel better? And
No, I just want them to sit there and tell me it's okay.
Okay, there you go.
You can be upset, it's okay, then I'll put it down.
How many of you have been in a really, really tough situation and somebody just came and sat down next to you and stuck their hand on your hand and just cried with you? Didn't say anything, didn't tell you it was going to be okay, didn't offer you some aphorism about, you know, so-and-so, just, there is now a clinical term, and there's training you can get for it, and I tell you what, a lot of professionals don't even want this training because it's so hard. It's called bearing witness. Can you just be with it? Because that is very often more powerful medicine than any drug, any therapeutic technique. Can you just bear witness? It is priceless if you've ever had someone do it for you. It is priceless. Yeah. Now, if somebody wants, and it's really important to know your people. My sister wants people with her when she's sad. She likes to have people with her when she's sad. I like to be alone when I'm sad. Yeah. It's very different for each person, which is why, what do you want to do? What's going on? Exactly. Then they're leading. See, then they're leading. They'll tell you where they're coming from and what they need if you let them lead. Exactly. What's going on? Yeah. Good questions. Any other questions? Did we cover everything on the quiz? I'm going to let Anita come up and go through the quiz with you guys.
What about the sleep patterns and stuff, and mental confusion?
What do you think?
Well, a lot of them, more than one of them.
So, if a mental confusion changes in sleep patterns and decrease appetite, do you think it's pain? Do you think it's depression? Do you think it's dementia? It could be all three. Absolutely. Yep, it could be all three. That's why people need to pay attention when they're assessing.
Maybe.
Because you don't want to pick the wrong one, right? All right. Thank you folks very much. Hope this was helpful.
That it was interesting.
I'll see you around. It's all yours, Anita.
Thank you, Darlene. You're back here, yeah. Yep, I don't know if you want to come up here and go through the quiz with us. or
I do.
Take care of other stuff.
Absolutely. Let me turn this camera off first. I do not want to be recorded. I'm sorry.
Oh.